The biblical passages the jurors discussed constituted either a part of the jurors' moral and religious precepts or their general knowledge, and thus were relevant to their court-sanctioned moral assessment. Judicial supervision of jury verdicts lies on a spectrum. On one end, some courts generally look the other way on jury misconduct. On the other, some courts firmly bury their heads, ostrich-style, in the sand about it. For all of the advantages of the jury as a decision-making body, it is often treated primarily as a black box, an inscrutable machine that spits out verdicts whose inner workings cannot be scrutinized. But a jury is not an ordeal, and while there is some cynicism in the manner that courts close their ears to credible allegations of misconduct, they aren't willing to tolerate anything and everything when it comes to deliberations. But consciences are personal things, and what offends the sensibilities of one appellate court will often be brushed off by another, or at least excused under the auspices of a highly deferential. Legal scholars say the connection between hard legal logic and the softer, deeper world of values is always present in jury rooms, whether acknowledged or not. The court says we're asking you to be moral men and women, to make a moral judgment of the right thing to do, but then we say the juror cheated because he brought in a book that forms the basis of his moral universe. If the general lesson is that religion and law don't mix, the specific lesson is that we sometimes misplace the trust we give to jurors and the faith we put into judicial officials to make sure things work well behind the scenes in a criminal case. Judge Vigil found that the jury supervision performed in this case was extremely negligent and appallingly lax. No steps were taken to ensure that jurors were not exposed to the extraneous information and outside influences that they were exposed to here. Amnesty International has said the use of biblical references to decide life or death in a capital trial is deeply, deeply troubling, and called on the authorities in Texas, which has carried out nearly half of the 39 executions in the U.S. this year, to commute the sentence. A Texas state appeal court rejected Oliver's plea to strike down the sentence because, it said, he had not presented clear and convincing evidence that the Bible influenced the jury's decision. The court acknowledged that there was reference to the Bible by the jurors, but said it was not improper. It said a conscientious, dedicated jury was uninfluenced by any outside influence of any kind shown to the court in this hearing. In the case of Khristian Phillip Oliver, a federal appeal court disagreed, saying that references to the Bible inside the jury room were improper, but it still refused to overturn the death sentence on the grounds that Oliver's lawyers had not proved that the readings influenced the death penalty decision. The court ruled that the jurors would have applied their own moral judgments, which would, in any case, have been influenced by their religious beliefs. Born on August 26, 1977, Khristian Phillip Oliver, on March 17, 1998, Oliver and 3 juvenile co-defendants were in the process of burglarizing the residence of a 64-year-old white male. Oliver and the co-defendants were in the house, and Reed was in the vehicle. The victim surprised Oliver, and Oliver shot the victim in the face with a .380 caliber handgun. The victim was bitten around the head with the butt of a rifle. Oliver and the co-defendants fled the scene. They were arrested in a motel in Waco, Texas. Oliver drove his girlfriend Sonia Reed and brothers Benny and Lonnie Rubalcaba to Joe Collins' house in Nacogdoches County and knocked on the door. When no one answered, they drove down the road a short distance and parked. Oliver and Lonnie then went back to the house with bolt cutters and a .380 caliber handgun, while Reed and Benny stayed in the truck. Oliver cut the padlock on the door, and he and Lonnie went inside. While they were gathering items from the house to steal, Collins, 64, returned home. The burglars tried to escape, but Collins shot Lonnie in the leg with a rifle. Oliver then shot Collins in the face with his handgun. While Benny helped his brother back to the truck, Oliver took the rifle from Collins and hit him in the face with the butt of the weapon. Oliver continued shooting Collins while he was lying on his back on the ground. The group took Lonnie to the hospital, then went to the sheriff's office and filed reports claiming that someone drove by and shot Lonnie while they were all at a farm. The next day, deputies picked up Benny and questioned him. He gave a written statement admitting what had actually happened. Investigators then questioned Lonnie, who, after repeating the original story about the farm, gave a written statement that corroborated his brothers. Oliver and Reed were then arrested at a motel in Waco. During the punishment phase of his capital murder trial, the state presented evidence that Oliver began committing burglaries about a year and a half before he murdered Joe Collins. A longtime accomplice and cohort of Oliver's testified to numerous burglaries he committed with Oliver, including a residential burglary committed in September 1996 in which they stole guns, an October 1996 burglary of the Heart of Texas Coliseum, 2 burglaries in June 1997 of Filling Station No. 7, a July 1997 burglary of a sporting goods store, a July 1997 burglary of a Little League concession stand, an August 1997 burglary of a Coliseum and General Exhibits building, and an October 1997 burglary of a community college field house. The accomplice also described several other burglaries and thefts that he and Oliver committed, including the theft of a large fishing boat from Don's Boat Sales. The accomplice said that when he and Oliver attempted to burglarize Waco High School, they fled after they were caught by a security guard. After they were in the car, Oliver fired a gun. The security guard testified that Oliver had pulled the gun and pointed it at him across the car roof, and also aimed and fired the gun at an approaching janitor. The accomplice testified that at the carjacking in Bosque Park in October 1997, Oliver pulled a gun on a man in a parking lot and took his wallet and keys. Testimony was also offered that Oliver broke into a store near Rusk and left with things from the store. Oliver had no previous felony convictions, but at his punishment hearing, the state presented testimony from a longtime accomplice of Oliver's showing that he had committed over a dozen burglaries over the previous year and a half. When he was attempting to burglarize Waco High School, Oliver fired a gun at a security guard and a janitor. The accomplice also testified that Oliver carjacked a man at gunpoint in October 1997. A jury convicted Oliver of capital murder in April 1999 and sentenced him to death. The Texas Court of Criminal Appeals affirmed the conviction and sentence in April 2002. All of his subsequent appeals in state and federal court were denied. The biggest controversy in Oliver's case was the fact that some of the jurors at his punishment hearing consulted the Bible while deciding on his sentence. The courts ruled that, although the Bible was improperly used as an external influence in Oliver's sentencing hearing, Oliver and his attorneys failed to show that it affected the outcome of the jury's deliberations. Sonia Fawn Reed was convicted of capital murder and sentenced to 99 years in prison. Because of their age and in exchange for their testimonies, the Rubalcaba brothers received lighter sentences. Lonnie Rubalcaba was sentenced to 10 years, and Benny Rubalcaba was sentenced to 5. Khristian Oliver was found guilty and sentenced to death for killing an East Texas farmer during a home invasion nearly a decade ago. However, Oliver's attorney claims the death sentence should be overturned because several jury members brought Bibles and consulted scripture in the deliberation room. But attorneys with the Foundation for Moral Law, headed by Judge Moore, have argued in a brief that the jury's consultation of Bible passages did not taint the jury in violation of the Sixth Amendment. Furthermore, Moore states the murderer's argument reflects a trend in society. Khristian Phillip Oliver, 32, was executed by lethal injection on the 5th of November 2009 in Huntsville, Texas for murdering a man while burglarizing his home. Oliver's execution was attended by members of both his and his victims' families. "No, you're not going to get the closure you are looking for," he said to the Collins family. Still, he said, "I wish you the best," and said he prayed for them every day and every night. Next, he told his parents that he loved them. He then began reciting Psalm 23, which begins, "The Lord is my shepherd." He got most of the way through it, "To my cup runneth over," before the drugs began to take effect. He was pronounced dead at 6:18 p.m. "I know you are not going to get the closure you are looking for," Oliver said to the victim's family. "I pray for you every day and every night. I have only the warmest wishes. I am sorry for what you are having to go through." After expressing love to his own family members, Oliver cited Psalm 23, the shepherd's prayer. Getting through several verses before being hushed by effects of the drugs. The good Lord was on our side this time. Despite accusations from attorneys that jurors consulted a Bible to justify his death sentence, the U.S. Supreme Court rejected Oliver's last-day appeal and Governor Rick Perry refused to stop the punishment. Oliver's execution was attended by members of both his and his victims' families. His last meal was fried chicken, a pint of chocolate ice cream and coffee. Thank you for watching Death Row.